It is sort of crazy when you're walking along the streets of New York and people sort of shout out at you, you know, say, hey, good luck getting it up, you know, that kind of thing. It's like, thank you, yep, no problem at home on that, but that's just that's on the TV show. Paul Atreides, Dune. Start with Dune. Why not start at the very beginning? I got a message from a casting agent who had come to Seattle and was auditioning actors for the role of Paul. And of course, I thought it was someone playing a prank on me. Turns out it was real, and I did a hotel room audition, which doesn't sound as bad as I made it just sound right now. It was actually a camera, and we did the scenes in the hotel room. It was a coveted role, I guess, in Hollywood at the time. They were looking at a lot of actors. So many different people auditioned for it. They came up with me. And how that happened, I have no idea. The experience was so outside the realm of what I knew to that point. I mean, I was 23, just graduated from acting school. No idea what was happening, honestly. But I knew the book really well. And I had played the role of Paul. I had been Paul in my imagination for so many years. And here I was able to bring him to life.
Father, the sleeper has awakened!
My screen test, the first screen test I did, I'd never seen a film camera before. And I had to do exactly what I'm doing now, just talk right down the barrel of the camera for one speech. And I went completely blank. And David came over to me and I said to him, I don't know if I can do this, David. And he said to me, you're gonna be great, it's gonna be great, you're gonna be fine, I know you can do it. That little pep talk, I guess, is something that has continued in our relationship together. David gives me the confidence to do things that I'm not sure that I can actually do. So, that's David. Ray Manzarek, The Doors. The Doors. So I taught myself to play all the music in it, because I used to play the piano, and I just did it by ear, that Oliver said we were going to be using in the movie. But of course, every couple of days, he would change his mind, or they say, no, we're going to change this tune, and we're not going to do this, and we're going to do this one. So I was like, oh, shit, I just learned that one. We got to filming, and we suffered through these wigs and these mutton chops that they had to put on the character. But before that, I remember we did a lot of rehearsing. We were actually able to play 2 or 3 songs for real. And when Val came in and sang Morrison, it was like kind of like we were this sort of Doors cover band. There's something really magical about putting together a song and being able to play it. I guess we felt like we were rock stars for a minute, you know? Every actor wants to be a rock star, every rock star wants to be an actor. The film was sort of a giant machine that just kind of moved forward and just kind of consumed everything in its path. That's what it felt like to me. Working with Oliver was challenging, you know. Oliver gets bored very easily, I think. You had your choice. You either could do something kind of crazy and get him sort of interested and excited, or you retreated and you just didn't want him to even kind of notice that you were there at all. And so I opted for the disappearing. So I sort of just tried to keep in the sidelines, you know, let him focus on Val and all that, which is really where his focus was anyway. Oliver and I have an unusual history. He and I met and discussed Platoon way back in the day, and we met and talked, and ultimately it never came to fruition. But it was nice that he came back around again and cast me in The Doors as Ray Manzarek. I don't know why he cast me as Ray Manzarek. I'm still trying to figure that out. I wasn't really sure. But I'm glad he did. The evil Cliff Van de Cave, The Flintstones. I was looking for a job, you know, and there was this role in the Flintstones. I grew up watching shows like, you know, the Beverly Hillbillies, Gilligan's Island. These were my shows, you know. And so I just sort of felt a common bond with this character. And I also grew up watching a lot of cartoons, and I said, well, I'm just going to sort of channel my inner thirst. And that sort of seemed to work anyway. I got cast, and we had so much fun. Every day there was a new strange thing that they created for us. Like we had a sundial wristwatch, and then we had I had a newspaper that was made out of this kind of crazy resin. I still have the name tag that's on my desk, the evil Cliff Van de Cave. It was brilliant what they did, and I had the time of my life. It was so much fun. It was like a thing where I actually got to use all the hours that I spent sitting on my couch when I was little growing up watching TV. I was able to channel those hours into this character and make him come alive. Jeffrey Beaumont, Blue Velvet. David Lynch had given me the script to Blue Velvet while we were filming Dune. I thought it was really compelling and exciting and obviously erotic and thrilling, you know, and I was very excited. You know, I wanted to share this new trajectory with my family. So I showed the script to my dad, and he read it, and he was okay. And then I showed it to my mom, and I didn't hear anything from her. And her husband, my parents had been separated and divorced, remarried, came to me and said, you know, she's a little upset about this movie, the script. And I was like, oh, that's not the kind of thing that you really want to share with your mom, you know, necessarily, which I didn't realize at the time, but of course learned after the fact. We had a fantastic time from the beginning to end. All of us, Isabella, Dennis Hopper, Laura Dern, myself, Dean Stockwell, we had a great time filming. We had a lot of fun. There were a lot of laughs. I think that happens in films that are really, really intense like that you need a lot of humor to get through all of that as actors because you go to such dark places. I really just allowed the reality of the film and the other actors to move me around. In scenes with Dennis Hopper, you know, I didn't have to come in and do a bunch of acting. I just basically reacted to Dennis. I mean, it's such a powerful performance. Same with Isabella. I was in the environment, her environment, and followed along, and just those impulses that came out of Jeffrey were coming out of me at the same time. And that's true with Laura Dern in the same way. I remember in particular there was a scene where I had to sit on the edge of my bed after a particularly violent scene with Isabella, and I break down. Of course, as a young actor, I'm putting a lot of pressure on myself to sort of have this emotional release. Once again, David came in and said, and he called me Cale. He said, Cale, you're going to be great. You're going to do this. We're just going to take some time here. And he relaxed everybody, and he relaxed me, and all the emotions just came bubbling up, you know. It was David's guiding hand that helped get me there. Zach, Carrie, Showgirls. Another cartoon, Showgirls, another cartoon film. Showgirls, oh gosh, the best intentions. That was one where it was an opportunity. Showgirls was an opportunity, believe it or not. I thought of it as an opportunity to like play like a kind of a baddie, you know, kind of a villain. I was a huge fan of Verhoeven from his early movies, RoboCop, Basic Instinct. So I'm like, I'm excited to work with this guy. This is going to be amazing. This is going to be a really intense, hard-hitting film. I read the script. It was really, you know, it was really sexy and edgy, and like at a period in my life when I was trying to sort of work against sort of maybe the clean-cut image a little bit. I was trying to do something different, and this was my choice. Anyway, we go into the filming, and I have a great time filming. I would sneak away to go skiing when I wasn't filming, which I wasn't supposed to do, but the snow was so good. So I skied, and I'd come back and do my thing. I was like, oh, happy, happy, happy. We did a scene coming back in Los Angeles in the pool, that whole sequence, which was a long night. It was like right near the end of the filming. It's the infamous pool scene. I was exhausted by the end of it, as you can imagine. And so cut 2 years later, or not years later, but months later, I go to my first screening and I watch this movie and I'm like, oh my God, this is awful. I said, oh my God. But you know, you have this hope, like you watch the first scene and you're like, all right, now it's not so good, but it's got to get better. And I watched the second one, it's like, not getting any better. Okay. And I watched the whole thing and I said, I don't know what to say about this movie. I don't think I can talk about this movie. And so I didn't do any press, which didn't, you know, make any friends in the publicity department there at that time, but it was just too difficult. And now, of course, the movie's got this great life, you know, lives on in infamy, I guess, and it's sort of a crowd pleaser. But at the time, it was a pretty big embarrassment. You know, it's just like, all right, got to go forward from here. But I think my career definitely took a hit on that one. But you know, that's the way it goes. Dale Cooper, Twin Peaks. So the role of Dale Cooper in Twin Peaks, probably the most important in my career to date, probably for the entire career. It was one of those things when you start out to do it and you're making a pilot and there were no real expectations that we would go further. It was going to be a 2-hour movie of the week if it didn't get picked up as a pilot. ABC decided that they liked it enough that they were going to ask us to do 7 more. So they all kind of came out at once and suddenly everything shifted and there was an explosion. And we were like right at the top of this incredible wave. It was pretty amazing. Coop is, he's like the old-time lawman. I kind of found him as we filmed the pilot, because I wasn't exactly sure who he was. He was on the page, you know, Damn Good Coffee and Hot. That was absolutely written like that. And I remember reading Damn Good Coffee and it was ... and Hot. And I was like, oh, how am I gonna do this? And so I just sort of launched into it. And I had this sort of crazy, over-the-top, enthusiastic, boyish kind of quality that seemed to work with the character.
This is, excuse me, a damn fine cup of coffee. Man, that hits the spot. Damn good coffee. And hot.
Of course, because I had David as a director, he was able to help steer me in certain situations and moments. We were doing a scene where I'm interrogating Dana Ashbrook's character, Bobby Briggs. He gets really angry and he says, I don't know, no. And I remember one of my takes, I got really angry back at him, and David came over and said, no, let's try something different. And I said, okay. And so he gets really angry, and I sit back and I sort of smile. And then I turn to Michael Onkeen and I smile at Michael. And then I turn back to him and I'm like, Bobby, it's like this.
What difference does it make? I didn't kill her!
Bobby, here's how this works. We ask the questions, and you answer the questions that we ask.
It was a choice that I hadn't really considered, but it was perfect. You know, David gave me that little jewel, and I said, very good. So I was learning as I went along as an actor, you know, and David was a master teacher. Mr. Mayor, Portlandia. Portlandia was another crazy thing where I went in to meet Andrew Singer, the producer, and Fred Armisen and Carrie Brownstein, and I didn't have any idea what they were doing, and they couldn't really tell me what they were doing. I was like, okay, well, this sounds like it could be fun, and we get to shoot in Portland, which is great, and I love everybody, you know, here because you're also talented, so okay, I'll just sign on. It was one of those where I just said, sure, I'd like to do it. Not really sure what I'm doing. They were just like, well, we'll figure it out, and we'll, you know, and that kind of very loose attitude sort of kept going through the entire seasons of it. I think I would show up, you know, and we'd have kind of a rough idea about what we were going to do. We would improv most everything, which was a technique and a skill that I didn't really have, but I've gotten much better at it because of working with Fred and Carrie.
This is the latest one we just got. Best official website for cities with populations under 700,000 in the Pacific Northwest area.
Congratulations.
Yeah, thanks. Well, I had this one made, and I presented it to myself. Seattle's is the worst.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. It's got too many links.
Everything was just like, kind of like last minute. Like, for instance, I was doing a farmer, I don't know if you remember this one, a goat farmer, and they found a crazy straw hat, and then they made this kind of weird beard for me, and they said, do you want the mustache? I said, no, just the beard, just like this, just down here like this. And they made this for me like in a half hour. I mean, it was unbelievable. And we stuck it on, and there you go, and there's a character. That's sort of the stuff I love. And it was so much fun to work with them. That was like a week out of the summer for me. I'd go up and we'd shoot all my stuff in Portland and hang out and go to nice dinners and make some really fun stuff. Riley's dad, Inside Out. How great to do a Pixar movie. I mean, it's like an actor's dream, right? And so they reached out and they wanted me to play the dad. And I got to the mom was Diane Lane, someone who I'd known from the very beginning. When I first came to Los Angeles, we actually had an acting class together. Anyway, so she plays the mom, I play the dad. And, you know, you work with no visual. They would talk us through what was happening in the scene that we were voicing. Then, of course, you'd go back in and you do, as they begin to draw and animate these scenes, you would go back and you would do the lines again. You have to really, really use your imagination and put yourself in that scene. So it's completely imagining the process of what these characters do and looking to the director and the producer for guidance, and also bringing your own stuff and contributing as much as you can based upon my dadness at that time. So I was a dad at that time, so it was good to be able to, you know, bring a little bit of my reality into the feeding of the broccoli, for instance. Trey MacDougal, Sex and the City. I was just in New York. I'd met Desiree, who was later to become my wife, and we were seeing each other. And to be honest, I didn't really know of Sex and the City before they reached out. I'd heard of it, but I didn't really realize it. And I remember saying to Desiree, I'm going to go meet on this. I'm not really sure. And she said, what is it? And she said, Sex and the City. She said, you should meet on that. So I met Michael Patrick King and Jenny Bix. We sat and had a chat, and I was really excited because they sort of had said he was a heart surgeon. He lives on the Upper East Side. He's sort of Charlotte's, you know, knight in shining armor. And I was like, this is actually pretty great. So I was like, this is a guy that sort of, he probably hangs out in Central Park. He throws the football with his friends, you know. He's like virile and like John Kennedy, you know. And then I meet with them and they say, that's fine. All those are all true. He also has issues with his mother and he's not able to get an erection. I was like, right, okay. So anyway, that's how we started. The writing was brilliant. The relationship was great. Kristen is fantastic to work with. We had a lot of fun together. And one of my favorite scenes, just because I thought it was so perfectly strange, was when I'm in the bathtub and I'm taking a bath. On the toilet is sitting Frances Cernegan, who plays my mom, and she's smoking. We're just having a conversation, just a regular conversation. And Charlotte, Kristen Davis' character, Charlotte, walks in and she's like, This is so wrong.
Get into this bed and make love to me right now.
Charlotte, I was just telling Trey how much you remind me of myself at your age.
I have often thought we should have the Trey and Bunny show, that should be the spin-off. Trey and Bunny go off and they have their own show, and you get to see them sort of around New York City. It could be kind of fun. They didn't take me up on that offer, though. Orson Hodge, Desperate Housewives. I think when I came in, Mark Cherry reached out, and I think he was a fan of Twin Peaks. They brought me in, and I was initially working with Terry Hatcher. We had, I remember they said it was a date. They quickly sort of shifted me over, and I started dating Marcia Cross, Bree. And I remember we clicked. She's a Juilliard graduate, and I'm from the University of Washington, so we both had training, acting training. And I remember Joe Keenan would write these fast-paced dialogue scenes for the two of us.
This conversation is over. The door stays open.
I want it closed.
No, you stink.
And you're a whore. Here's the difference. I can get clean.
It was really fun working with Marcia. She's an extraordinary actress, and we had really good chemistry, I think. Everything was really good because I was coming to work, and it was literally 10 minutes from my house. One big happy family, working outside for the most part. I loved the cast and crew. Again, one of those where I think I was probably supposed to be on for a year or two. I lasted for, I think I was on the show for 6 years. Oh my God. See what happens? Time goes when you're having fun. Cal Szabo, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. sort of came, there was this role, and they reached out. Again, kind of funny, these things come. He had this sort of secret, and he was tortured. I loved it as an actor. I loved that challenge. And I was able to sort of let a lot of things just kind of go. As an actor, it was not a pivotal moment, but it was something that I felt I was ready for. All those emotions that I'd had a difficult time dealing with when I was maybe younger in Blue Velvet, suddenly everything was available to me. So I was able to bring this guy who was alternating between, anger and crying and laughing and kind of manic. It all was starting to gel for me. Dale Cooper, Dougie Jones, Mr. C, Twin Peaks. There was a long lead up to finally beginning filming on that. David Lynch called me on the phone and said he needed to talk to me about something very important. And he came to New York, and we sat in his hotel, and he told me they found a way back to Twin Peaks. And he said, would you like to be involved? And I said, David, I never left Twin Peaks, you know that. So that's how we sort of sealed the agreement over a cup of coffee, of course. David has me over to his house in Los Angeles because he's said you're going to have to do, there's some pretty good, intense stuff here, which gets me very excited. But at the same time, I was a little nervous, too. So I started reading these pages, and I realized that there were 3 characters he was asking me to do. Cooper, as I remember him, this character of Dougie, which was a little confusing to me at the time, and then this badass named Mr. C. And that was the one that made me pause and go, okay, I've never done this before. I don't know if I can do it. I think I can do it, but I'm not sure. And he has to be the most dangerous person you've ever met. And I'm like, okay, well, I'm gonna have to do it. I found my way into this character, and I began to take on this persona. I remember the first day with this guy and walking out and creating this character. I was kind of stunned inside, and David was stunned, and we said, we got him. We got this guy.
It hurt my arm when you moved it down here. But it really hurt when you had it down here. See? Doesn't that hurt your arm when I go like that?
As an actor, there are few moments when you really, at least for me, when you really feel like, wow, okay, I'm in uncharted territory. And that's where I felt I was. And it was thrilling. Isaac Izzard, The House with a Clock in Its Walls. Eli Roth, our director, reached out to me for this character, and I was immediately charmed by this character. He's a baddie, he's bent on world destruction, blah, blah, blah. But he has, at least as I read it, he had a charm and a panache and a charisma that was undeniable. And I said, that's what I want to do. I was surprised, pleasantly surprised, that they put on this prosthetic, which was quite extreme, more extreme than I thought it was going to be when I first started. I thought it was going to be just a few little dabs here and there. But they put on these prosthetics, which completely changed my whole appearance. I actually really, really liked it. I liked disappearing behind this mask. Even more so, I loved the idea that this guy looks a certain way, which is not very pleasant, but maintains this, bravura, and belief in himself. He believes he's the sexiest man in the room. And to be able to play that looking the way I looked with the actors that were with me, that was a fun experience, and that's where I think the prosthetics really aided in the creation of the character.